Welcome to our toolkit. Our topic was increasing teen engagement in rural libraries. So when looking at planning for teens in rural libraries, it became apparent that they struggle with the fact that they have low budgets. They lack teen areas specifically within the physical space. Teens also might struggle to get to and from the library, or the library isn't even open when they could go to the library. There's also the belief that the perception of the library is dated. It's only a place where people get books. They are unaware of the programs that can be offered for them within the library space. So now that we've looked at the problems, how do we create solutions? So, moving forward, a librarian must keep in mind the cost of programming and how will that cost be paid for, along with considering the fact that teens are going to be in other locations other than the library. This means programs must be considered as mobile to move to both physical and virtual spaces that teens are located. We also must keep in mind that we need to make events specifically for teens so that they feel welcome within the space and have events that are tailored for them so that it is a social event to show up to the library. We also should consider setting long-term goals that can't be done currently, but can be done in the future once we have proven there is an interest. And now we move into our case studies. All of our case studies are rather low-cost activities that can be done in rural libraries. Some of them can be done at other locations. So the first case study is hosting a Dungeons and Dragons night. Dungeons and Dragons is a very popular board game that has a very broad, very large fan base. The library can offer either to simply be the space that a Dungeons and Dragons game is being hosted at, or they can choose to have a librarian who has knowledge about the game to host the event. This would be a relatively low-cost program since many of the players already have their own materials. And then we also have our second case study, which is a teen book club. Book clubs for teenagers are very popular in libraries, especially with the emergence of book talk creating very, very popular genres like romantasy and young adult fantasy or fiction. These book clubs can also be tailored to certain themes like LGBTQ content, and other libraries can be partnered with to acquire the amount of books needed to run a book club. These libraries might be in different towns, but they may also have many more copies than a rural library would of one type of book. Plus, a book club can also be considered an activity that would be good to move around to other locations, like in a school, and the librarian would simply have to take all of the copies of the books to the book club. And now we go into case study number 3. So for number 3, we have the idea of a video game night. This can be either competitive or non-competitive video game nights because many video games can be multiplayer. So even though this is an expensive one-time purchase, it's looked at as a very good purchase to consider as you can continue using the console and hosting many different games as you acquire them. So this was a very nice idea that many libraries have done, including hosting nights for Mario, Roblox, and Minecraft. And now we move into our craft time. So case 4 is the trendy craft time activity, and this one is very interesting and adaptable because it can be themed to whatever is currently trending on social media for teens. Currently, we found that Labubus are very popular. So our example would be making a Labubu clothing night to have teens come and make tiny outfits for their Labubus and put them in their little outfits because they are little dolls that are hung from people's purses. So now that we have our program, we have to know how to pay for it. So rural libraries have much smaller budgets than their larger city counterparts. So this means they have to get very creative with how they finance their programming. So when we were looking into this, the ideal situation is finding an outside partner. So corporate partners is our very first suggestion. These are large corporations like Walmart that have grants you can apply for on their website. These grants might take a little while to get back to you because the approximate time would be 3 months, but for a grant that could be in the thousands of dollars, I consider that worth the wait. And then we also have public library grants. These grants are actually targeted towards libraries who lack funding, and many of them have specific requirements to be for rural or indigenous libraries. And then we have community partners. Now, these partners may not be able to financially support you, but they may be able to supply their skill set, their time, or their merchandise. An example of this would be a hobby group in your area that may be able to run an introductory course on a skill that they have, or a store that may be wanting to give you merchandise to, say, host a puzzle night, and you can run a competitive puzzle night amongst teenagers. So we now have our program and our financing, but we still have to get them through the door. This is where marketing comes in. Marketing to teens is absolutely vital. And the problem with having a rural library do marketing is that many times rural libraries don't have a social media presence, or they market directly to the parents rather than directly to the teen. So these types of marketing problems can easily be fixed. It just needs to be focused on. So having a social media presence where teens are virtually located, like Instagram or TikTok, is very important. This way they know what is going on in the space. We can also have physical advertisements, physically where we know they are in the world. This may be a community center or their school, and this could just be a poster advertising the gaming night. So they may happen upon the poster and want to go with their friends. Another thing to keep in mind when planning for programs for teens is making programs for all teens. This is why there is a slide about inclusivity, because inclusivity is very important for teens. Many teens are LGBTQ+, or people of color. It all depends on what your community demographic is, and it is possible that teens may not view the library as a safe space for their identity. Now, rural libraries can fix this by hosting book nights that focus on main characters with their identity, or having many different visuals that prove that the library is a safe space for all. This can be pride flags and advertisements saying that the library is for everyone. But it is very important that we make clear the library is a space that they can come and enjoy their time just like everyone else in the community. So what are the key takeaways? Well, rural libraries tackle some very hard challenges when trying to come up with successful programming for teens. This is true, but a librarian can get very creative in finding ways to get around those challenges. A librarian must know their community very well and know how to find solutions to create the best programming for those teens within their community. A librarian must also be aware that teen culture is constantly changing as teens age out, so a librarian must stay up to date to get the most ideal library experiences for the teens that are currently in their community. And we've now come to the end of the slideshow. All of our sources and further readings can be found in the paper documents. I just would like to thank everybody who took the time to watch and listen to our slideshow presentation about rural libraries' struggle with teen engagement and possible programs for teens in rural libraries. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.